Aidan Michaels thought the battlefield was behind him, but one snowy evening in the mountains, fate found him again, on four tiny, trembling paws. A little German shepherd pup stumbled out of the storm, crying, clinging to him like it had been waiting for him all along. At first, Aidan believed it was simply lost, but when that pup tugged at his jacket and begged him, yes, begged, to follow into the freezing woods, that old instinct in his soldier's chest awakened. Something was wrong, terribly wrong. What he discovered in the darkness would break him and rebuild him. A silent mother on the edge of life, a baby refusing to give up on her, a love so fierce it could move mountains or melt a soldier's scars. This wasn't just a rescue. This was a miracle sent through snow and prayer, straight into a man who needed saving too. Before we begin, tell me, where are you watching from? Drop your country in the comments below. Snow drifted lazily across the mountain town of Evergreen Ridge as dusk sank into the pines, turning the horizon into a soft bruise of lavender and gold. Winter here was quiet, the kind of silence that felt padded, as if the world had wrapped itself in wool to keep memories from echoing too loudly. And yet, for Aidan Michaels, silence had never felt heavier. Aidan walked the narrow main street alone, boots crunching over a thin sheet of frost. He moved with the practiced gait of a man trained to avoid noise, shoulders squared, head slightly lowered, eyes scanning out of instinct. 6'2", broad-shouldered, with the weight of someone who had carried too many lives in his arms, he looked like he belonged on a battlefield, not in a sleepy mountain town. Dark hair, once neatly shaved to military regulations, now grew a little too long at the collar, matching the stubble shadowing his jaw. There was a rugged, carved-from stone sharpness to his face, but his eyes, steel blue and tired, betrayed something raw underneath. People in Evergreen Ridge knew him as the quiet veteran who volunteered for community patrols and repaired fences for elderly neighbors without being asked. But behind those calm eyes lay ghosts. Ghosts of sand-covered battlefields, of brothers lost under distant skies, of promises he couldn't keep. Aidan had been dealt a force. He had been trained to be the blade no enemy could dull, to run toward danger when others fled. But no manual, no drill, had prepared him for the day he'd come home with medals and nightmares, instead of the men who should have been beside him. They gave him a folded flag. He gave them his sleep. And now he walked every snowy dusk in Evergreen Ridge, trying to stop old memories from marching louder than his heartbeat. His gloved hands were shoved deep in his jacket pockets, the thick fabric cutting the sting of mountain wind. He passed by Frosty Pine's grocery, its windows steamed with warmth. Inside, Sarah Talbot waved when she saw him through the glass. Sarah was in her late 40s, petite, with warm brown skin, silver-streaked curls tied into a low bun, and smile lines that told stories of laughter she'd earned the right to keep. She managed the store with a mother heart and a school teacher's sternness, having moved to this town after her husband's passing 5 years ago. To townsfolk, she was kindness in a cardigan. To Aidan, she was one of the few souls who treated him like he wasn't fragile glass. She opened the door slightly. "Soup's on the stove for when you pass back around, honey," she called, voice warm as cinnamon. Aidan offered the faintest smile, small but sincere. "Thanks, Sarah. Might take you up on that." "You better," she said, wagging her finger playfully. "You look like you've been living on protein bars and stubbornness again." He huffed a soft laugh, tipped 2 fingers in a faux salute, and continued down the snowy street. Sarah shook her head fondly. "That boy carries winter in his eyes," she murmured, then returned inside. Aidan continued toward the edge of town, where the line between civilization and wilderness blurred into whispering pines and deer-worn trails. The air grew sharper, the quiet more absolute. He inhaled deeply. Cold, clean, better than sand, better than smoke. Then he heard it. A faint scuffling sound behind him, light, quick, irregular. Aidan turned, instinct flaring. Footsteps? Animal? Astray? The snow glowed pale blue in the fading light, and out from the shadows stumbled a tiny figure, small paws, oversized ears that drooped at the tips, fur a patchwork of tan and sable that would one day grow noble and commanding. A German shepherd puppy, maybe 10 weeks old, no collar, trembling violently. The pup's ribs were visible beneath thin winter fur, and one paw dragged slightly, slowing its steps. It looked like it had been alone for days, or forever. The puppy lifted its head and locked eyes with him, huge, glossy, midnight round eyes glistening with fear, confusion, and something else, pleading. Aiden crouched, hands slow and gentle as if approaching live explosives. "Hey, little soldier," he murmured, voice low, soothing by habit. "Where'd you come from?" The puppy whimpered, then startled him by rushing forward, pressing its tiny body against his boot as if clinging to life itself. Aiden froze. He had seen men cling like that once, after blasts, after screams, after hope frayed too thin. His chest tightened. Carefully, he reached down. Before he could touch it, the puppy jerked away, giving a sharp bark, urgent, commanding in its tiny voice, then ran a few steps toward the tree line. It turned back, barked again, waited. "You trying to lead me?" Aiden whispered. The pup sprinted back, nudged his pant leg, then darted toward the forest again. Every few feet it stopped, looked back, barked, trembled. His military gut, a compass he trusted more than logic, tightened. Something was wrong, bad wrong. He stared toward the forest. The trees stood tall and unforgiving, their tops swallowed by twilight. Locals said wolves roamed deeper in, coyotes too, and cliffs where hikers vanished. Aiden wasn't afraid of any of that. But he respected the mountains. He also knew panic when he saw it. Not the frantic flailing kind, but the purposeful kind. The kind trained soldiers carried when there was still one more chance to save someone. "Someone's out there," he murmured. The puppy barked again, circling him anxiously, tail stiff, tiny body shaking not just from cold. Fear lived in that trembling. It pressed its nose into his boot like a plea. Then it turned and darted into the tree line. Aiden's breath hitched. "Damn it," he muttered to himself, old instincts roaring awake. He checked the knife sheathed at his belt and the small emergency flashlight in his jacket. Could be an injured hiker, could be an animal trap, could be worse. But he didn't hesitate again. "All right, lead on," he said softly and stepped into the woods. Snow whispered beneath his boots, branches brushed his coat. The world grew darker, quieter, colder. The puppy kept pausing, its small silhouette shaking against the white ground, eyes shining like haunted stars each time it looked back. Aiden's heartbeat steadied, instincts clicking into the familiar rhythm of mission mode. One step, then another, every sense sharpened, scanning shadows and sounds. But under the discipline pulsing through him, an old ache stirred. He had followed cries before. He had arrived too late before. "Not this time," he whispered into the wind, not sure if he was talking to the mountains, to fate, or to the ghosts that walked behind him. Somewhere deeper in the woods, something faint echoed. Was it a whimper? Or just wind threading through branches? The puppy froze. So did he. Snowflakes hung like suspended breath. The forest waited. And Aiden knew whatever lay ahead in the darkness was going to change something inside him. Perhaps break him. Perhaps heal him. Perhaps both. He tightened his jaw, stepped deeper into the shadows, and whispered to the tiny guide at his feet, "Show me." The puppy took off again, faster this time, and Aiden followed. Then, somewhere up ahead in the dark, something alive cried out, and everything inside him snapped to alert. The forest thickened around him like a closing fist, branches interlocking overhead and swallowing what little twilight lingered. Snow sifted down in thin, glittering threads, catching on the seams of Aiden's jacket and melting cold against the warmth of his neck. His breath came out in controlled measures, practiced, measured, the breath of a man who had learned in deserts and ruins how to keep panic beneath command. The puppy darted ahead, its little paws punching soft tracks into the snow, then paused and looked back, ears flattened, tail low but trembling with urgency. Every few steps it would gently whimper or bark, a sound too small to belong to something so determined. Aiden followed, boots steady but heart drumming in the hollow cage of his chest. His military training whispered through him. Count steps, mark subtle paths, notice everything. Broken twigs, disturbed snow, faint indentations that could belong to animal or human. But this was no battlefield, he reminded himself. There were no insurgents, no ambushes, no distant booms or radio static, just wind, pines, and a terrified creature guiding him like fate in fur. Then the sound came again, weak, fragile, a whimper shaped like sorrow. Aiden stopped cold, his muscles locked into instinct, shoulders low, hand twitching toward the knife on his belt before logic returned. It was no human cry. It broke instead in the tone of something maternal, wounded, fading. The puppy bounded ahead, snow spraying from its paws. Aiden pushed forward faster now, breath tightening. He hadn't run like this since the day smoke bled across a desert sky and he carried his closest friend, Sergeant Miles Carter, toward a rescue helicopter that arrived too late. The world had been sand and gunfire then. Now it was ice and silence. But the feeling was the same. Someone was slipping away. A shallow rise opened into a small hollow tangled with fallen branches and frost-stiff underbrush. And there she was. A German shepherd, full-grown but skeletal beneath her coat, pinned under a heavy pine trunk split by age or storm, tan and black fur matted with dirt and faint streaks of dried blood. Her ribs lifted in shallow, quivering motions, each breath a battle she was losing. Her eyes, once proud, no doubt, sharp and intelligent, were dull with exhaustion, yet still alight with a kind of stubborn maternal fire. She lifted her head when Aiden approached, but only barely. The puppy launched itself against her muzzle, whining frantically, pressing its tiny face into her cheek as if trying to share warmth. Life, will. Aiden knelt slowly. Even after years in special operations, after dragging wounded men to cover and holding their hands as dust storms swallowed final breaths, something in him fractured at the sight. "Hey," he whispered, voice surprisingly hoarse, the words sticking to grief in his throat. "Hey, sweetheart, you're all right. We're here." The dog blinked slowly, as if understanding, as if relieved that someone finally answered her child's desperate call. Snow thickened, flakes beginning to swirl in a wind rising from the north. Aiden slid one hand beneath the mother dog's head, the other brushing gently over her fur. She flinched, not at him, but at pain carved too deep for fear. Aiden swallowed hard. "You did good, little one," he murmured to the puppy without looking away from the mother. "You held on long enough to call in backup." His voice cracked softly, surprising him. He scanned the fallen trunk. The pine was waterlogged and thick as his torso, its bark rough and iced, not simply a branch, half a tree. She must have been caught days, maybe longer. Every hour a war of survival, every breath a testament to loyalty stronger than death. Aiden moved into position, adrenaline flicking through muscles that remembered breaching walls and lifting rubble. "Stay with me," he whispered, then looped his old tactical belt, repurposed these days for mundane civilian tasks, around the trunk. He wedged a flat stone under one side, testing leverage. Years of battlefield physics flooded back, how to free men from collapsed buildings, from burning vehicles, from places where life narrowed to seconds. But there, for a moment, his hand froze. Not because of doubt in his strength, but because his mind flared with a memory. Miles pinned under a Humvee, reaching up, eyes burning, whispering, "Go." Live. Aiden hadn't lifted that weight in time, not then. His breath shook, and shame flickered sharp and unwelcome. But now. This time, he could change the ending. He set his stance, boots dug into snow, teeth clenched. "Okay, on 3. Come on, girl. 1. The puppy whined and pawed at his knee. 2. His muscles coiled, every nerve drawing tight like pulled wire. 3. He heaved, pain seared his shoulder. The tree resisted like a stubborn ghost of nature, groaning against his force. Snow fell harder, wind shuddering through branches. Aiden roared low in his chest and pushed again, feet sliding, breath burning. The log shifted, an inch. The dog gasped, a rattled whine scraping her throat. Come on, Aiden growled, every tendon screaming as he lifted with a strength carved from years of refusing to surrender. Finally, with a harsh crack of ice and bark, the trunk rolled enough for him to drag her free. The mother collapsed into his arms, limp, trembling like the last leaf in winter wind. Aiden dropped to his knees in the snow, cradling her head, breath ragged. You're okay. I've got you now. You're safe. Her eyes fluttered, a weak sigh leaving her chest like the softest answer. The puppy cried, pawing at her face, licking feverishly. Aiden checked her quickly. No obvious broken limbs, but deep bruising, dehydration, starvation. She wouldn't make it through the night out here. I'm taking you both out, he murmured, lifting her as carefully as if she were made of glass. And memories. He steadied her against his chest, her frail body startlingly light for a shepherd. The puppy pressed against his boot again, desperate trust radiating from its tiny frame. He could feel her heartbeat stuttering against his ribs, weak, but there, fighting, trying. Just hold on, he whispered. You've survived everything else. Hold on for me. Snow whirled thicker now, wind whipping through branches like something ancient calling him to hurry. He pushed to his feet, dog in arms, puppy at his heels, breath steaming into the cold. Somewhere distantly, a branch cracked in the storm's rising breath. The world felt suspended, fragile, as if one misstep could shatter the miracle this tiny creature had fought to bring him to. Aiden turned toward the faint glow of town lights down the slope. Home. Hope. Humanity. He only made it 6 steps before something shifted in the darkness behind him, large, silent, deliberate. The puppy froze, tiny body rigid, ears pricked toward the shadowed woods. Aiden's pulse spiked. Slowly, he pivoted, every instinct like a stretched tripwire. Snow danced between trees, the wind carrying the scent of pine, and something else. He adjusted his grip on the mother dog, free hand sliding toward the knife at his belt. Not now, he muttered under his breath. Not tonight. A low sound drifted through the dark, breath or growl, he couldn't tell. The forest held its breath with him, and in that suspended moment, Aiden realized something chilling. The struggle wasn't over. Someone, or something else, was out there watching. The night swallowed sound and shape as Aiden braced the trembling German shepherd against his chest, her frail body barely more than bones wrapped in fading warmth. Wind clawed at him, slicing down the valley like a predator with frozen breath, tugging at branches that rattled like bones. Snowflakes thickened into a fierce curtain, blurring trees into ghostly silhouettes. He adjusted his grip on the dog, her fur cold, slick with melting ice, body shuddering with weak pulses of pain, then pulled his jacket tighter around her, creating a barrier of heat like he once did for wounded teammates beneath the Afghan stars. The puppy pressed to his boot, tiny paws sinking into the snow, whimpering as if begging the storm itself to grant mercy. Aiden moved fast, but every step fought the forest's grip. Fallen limbs snagged his legs, the slope beneath him hid treacherous ice. His breath billowed in harsh bursts, rhythmic like battlefield exertion, but his heart churned not from fear of death. He had made peace with that years ago, but from fear of losing life he had just found. The woods behind them whispered with something unseen, a rustle that could have been wind, or something hungry, watching. But stopping here meant surrendering, and Aiden had sworn he would not fail another soul who looked to him for survival. Not again, not tonight. He quickened his pace, boots skidding down a short incline. Pain sparked through his shoulder where old shrapnel scars lived, like buried secrets, a faint reminder of a roadside blast that once tossed him into blackness and left him crawling through rubble to reach screaming comrades. He gritted his teeth. Pain was old news. Losing someone wasn't. A memory rose, unbidden. The face of Captain Elias Monroe, his commanding officer back then, a towering man in his 40s with gray-streaked hair, steel-cut jaw, and the calm certainty of a storm-tested leader. Elias had once said, "We don't get to choose who lives, Aiden. We only choose who we run toward." The memory hit him like recoil. He was running now, and he knew exactly who he was running toward. The town lights flickered far below the tree line, a faint glow blurred by snow and distance. He pressed forward, lungs burning, legs aching. The shepherd in his arms whimpered, and he dipped his head close to her ear. "Stay with me," he whispered, voice raw with grit and prayer. "Just hold on." The puppy barked sharply, stumbling as snow clung to its paws, then scrambled determinedly to keep up, slipping once, recovering as if defiance alone held its tiny frame upright. "I know," Aiden murmured. "I'm trying." He broke through the tree line at last, emerging near a narrow mountain trail carved into the hillside. The storm bellowed louder here. Open wind lashed him, ripping heat from his skin. Shadows from pine branches whipped over him like phantom arms. His truck, an old forest-green Ford F-150 scarred with dents and streaks of dried mud, sat. Halfway down the slope, headlights already fading beneath falling snow. He hurried through the white haze, boots slipping, arms tightening protectively around the dog. When he reached the truck, he eased the shepherd into the back seat onto an old wool blanket, hands gentle as if placing the most fragile piece of glass. The puppy leapt in beside her, pressing its tiny body against her belly, whining frantic devotion. Aiden slammed the door, breath shaking. He sprinted to the driver's side, hauling himself in, igniting the engine with a roar that sounded like defiance. He flicked on the emergency rescue lights, amber strobes cutting amber fire through snow, and jammed the truck into gear. Tires spun against ice, fishtailed, then gripped. They shot down the mountain road like a bullet blazing against the cold. Snow slammed the windshield in furious sheets. The wipers fought to push it aside but failed to keep pace, smearing streaks of white across glass. Headlights sliced only a few feet ahead, leaving the rest of the world swallowed by winter's throat. Aiden leaned forward, jaw tight, eyes unblinking. Come on, he muttered. Hold together. The truck slid dangerously near the edge once, wheels screaming against hidden gravel. Aiden jerked the wheel, steadying them, heart hammering against ribs. Fear didn't grip him often. Battle had burned that instinct down, but now it curled around his chest like barbed wire. Not for himself, for them. A sudden sharp cry came from the back seat. The mother dog twitched in pain. The puppy barked and pawed at her face, panic rising. Aiden couldn't turn around. Speed and road demanded his gaze, but he called over his shoulder, voice shaking. It's okay, I'm here. Stay with me, girl. Don't quit. He pressed harder on the gas. The road blurred. Snow roared. His thoughts flickered to the emergency vet clinic in the valley below, the only one within miles, run by Dr. Nora Whitfield, a woman in her early 30s with warm cocoa-brown skin, sharp almond-shaped amber eyes, and a steady presence that came from treating both pets and broken-hearted owners. Rumor said she'd left a high-paying city hospital after losing her fiancé in a car accident, choosing quiet mountains over haunted highways. She once told Aiden, "You don't fix grief, you just pick who you carry it with." Tonight, he prayed she would be there. He barreled past the old logging bridge, past Miller's farm where faded red barns slumbered in snow, past the dark silhouette of Deputy Cole Ramsey's patrol SUV parked roadside. Cole was a lean man in his mid-30s with freckles dusting pale skin, tired hazel eyes, and a soft-spoken manner that hid a spine of iron. A childhood in foster homes had made him protective of anything small and vulnerable. Their headlights crossed for a moment. Cole squinted, lifted a hand, but Aiden didn't stop. Couldn't. He sped on. The valley widened. Streetlights flickered alive through the storm. The glowing red sign of Silver Pine Animal Clinic cut through snow like salvation. Aiden exhaled a breath that trembled. He jerked the truck to a stop so fast the rear fishtailed. He was out before the engine finished shaking, flung the door open, and yanked the back door wide. The shepherd barely moved. The puppy scrambled onto his arm as he lifted the mother again, cradling her like something holy and dying and irreplaceable. Snow whipped around him, stinging his face as he stumbled toward the clinic doors. Light spilled through glass, warm, golden, alive. He kicked the door open with his boot. Heat and antiseptic air rushed over him. Inside, a young vet tech looked up. Maya, barely 21, petite with olive skin, dark hair and a messy ponytail, earnest brown eyes that always seemed to glimmer with the intensity of someone who cared too much, too fast. She dropped her clipboard, hands flying to her mouth. "Oh my God, she's dying," Aiden said, voice raw gravel. "She's got minutes." Maya bolted toward the back. "Dr. Whitfield, emergency!" Aiden lowered the shepherd onto a gurney as Nora rushed out. Tall, athletic build, curly hair tied high, face sharp with focus, yet eyes soft with instinctive compassion. "What happened?" "Found her in the woods," Aiden said, voice cracking. "Pinned, starved. This little one led me to her." The puppy whimpered, pressing its nose into the mother's cheek again. Nora's expression shifted, admiration, sorrow, determination. "You brought her in time," she said gently, then shouted, "Let's move." They wheeled the gurney through swinging doors. Aiden followed until Nora stopped him with a palm on his chest. "Aiden." Calm, steady, anchor voice. "Let us work. Wait here." He clenched his jaw, nodded once. She disappeared inside. The doors swung shut. Silence pounded. Snow melted on his jacket and dripped to the floor. The puppy curled at his feet, trembling like a heartbeat made of fur. Aiden lowered himself to the bench by the wall. His hands shook, not from cold, from the terror of hope. The puppy placed one tiny paw on his boot, looking up as if demanding he stay strong too. Aiden leaned forward, elbows on knees, breath shuddering. "Don't die," he whispered into his hands. "Not her." And beyond the storm outside, deep in the clinic's hidden room, soft voices and hurried footsteps fought time. Warm light spilled through the glass walls of the Silver Pine Animal Hospital recovery ward, turning sterile tile floors into soft pools of amber. The storm that had raged outside now hummed as snowfall, tapping gently against the windows like nature was whispering for quiet. Machines beeped softly, steady and reassuring. Each tone felt like a promise. Life is still here. Aiden sat hunched in a corner chair, elbows on knees, fingers interlocked in front of his mouth. His shoulders, broad, defined through years of carrying weight no man truly could, were tense, curled forward as if he were bracing for impact. His eyes, usually sharp and observant, were fixed on the floor, staring at nothing yet seeing too much. Sand, fire, broken bodies, letters folded into uniforms, flags handed to crying families. And now a trembling shepherd fighting for breath. His breath shook, hands trembled, but he didn't move. The pup lay curled at his boot like a tiny guardian, its velvety ears twitching whenever the mother's heart monitor beeped. The little creature was exhausted, but loyalty overrode fatigue. Aiden looked down at it, his voice raw from hours of silence. "You don't quit, do you?" The puppy's tail gave one small thump against the tile as if to say, "Neither do you." The double doors swung open. Dr. Nora Whitfield appeared, pulling off her gloves. Her curly hair was damp at the edges, nose pink from long hours under sterile lights. Beneath her calm exterior, flecks of worry clung like snowflakes that refused to melt. For a moment she didn't speak, only met Aiden's eyes. Then, soft, steady, almost a breath. "You brought her just in time." Aiden exhaled a sound that wasn't quite a laugh, wasn't quite a sob, more like a prayer escaping a cage. His hands covered his face as he leaned forward, body shaking. The puppy jumped into his lap, licking furiously at his chin and cheek, tail wagging with wild relief. Nora's lips curved into the quiet smile of someone who had seen grief transform into gratitude 1,000 times and never tired of it. Maya peeked from behind her, bright-eyed even through fatigue, hair messy in a way that suggested she'd been running around for hours. She whispered, "Told you he wouldn't leave." Then disappeared back into the treatment room with a grin, like hope was contagious and she wanted to spread it. Aiden pulled himself together slowly, wiping his eyes with the back of his sleeve, trying and failing to pretend his voice wasn't breaking when he asked, "She'll live?" Nora nodded. "She's not out of the woods yet. Metabolically, she's fragile, muscles severely atrophied, bruising and dehydration, but her vitals are stabilizing. That's a miracle in itself." Aiden's gaze flicked to the swinging doors, as if he could see through them. "Warriors," Nora added quietly. "Some souls fight harder than medicine can measure." He swallowed. She didn't fight alone. Nora looked down at the pup in his arms. The puppy yipped softly, almost proudly. "No," she said. She didn't. 3 days later, Evergreen Ridge lay under a crisp blanket of snow, glittering like frost-brushed glass beneath morning sunlight. Aiden arrived at the clinic early each morning. He'd sit there in jeans and an olive-green thermal shirt, sleeves pushed up revealing corded forearms and pale scars, drinking black coffee out of habit rather than taste. Each day he sat closer to the recovery kennel. Each day the mother dog's eyes shone brighter. On the 4th morning, he walked in to see the shepherd, no longer limp, no longer fading, pushed shakily to her feet. Her tail lifted weakly. Her chest rose with a steady breath that sounded like a promise. Aiden froze mid-step. His breath caught. A slow, disbelieving smile spread across his face, a rare, unguarded expression that made him look shockingly young again, like a man who once believed life still had soft things left to offer. "Well, look at you," he whispered. The puppy, still unnamed, barked in pure celebration, launching itself like an eager missile, paws skittering across the tile as it tried climbing onto Aiden's boot. Behind him, Sarah Talbot peeked in with a small paper bag in hand. She had shown up every morning since hearing the story, claiming she was bringing breakfast for the hospital staff, though she always had an extra cinnamon roll or soup container with Aiden's name on it. Today, she wore a thick cream sweater and a scarf patterned with pine trees, curls pulled into a high bun. Her warm eyes softened when she saw the scene. "I'll be," she breathed. "She's standing." Aiden turned, face still carrying disbelief that cracked into gratitude the moment he saw Sarah. "You didn't have to come." "Well, someone has to make sure you eat real food and not whatever it is ex-soldiers chew on for survival." She winked. "Tree bark, probably." He smiled again. 2 smiles in one morning. Even Sarah looked stunned. "Careful," she teased softly. "Your face might forget how to scowl." Aiden shook his head, eyes glistening. "Funny." They both turned back when the mother dog took a slow step forward, then another. Her body wobbled, but she moved, and when she reached the edge of the kennel and pressed her nose through the bars toward Aiden, he knelt and pressed his knuckles gently to her forehead. "You're stronger than half the soldiers I served with," he whispered. Nora entered then, hands in coat pockets, a tired but triumphant glow about her. I'd say she knows who saved her. A moment passed, quiet, reverent. Then she asked, "So, what's the plan? When she's cleared, where will she go?" Aiden looked from the mother to the puppy, to those eyes that had dragged him through snow and memory and into a fight worth fighting. Something clicked in him then, or maybe something finally healed. "They're staying with me." Nora's brows lifted just slightly, and a warmth bloomed in her gaze. "You sure?" "I wasn't sure about much lately," he said softly, voice thick. "But I'm sure about them." The puppy barked sharply as if stamping approval on the declaration. Aiden gave a quiet laugh, astonished that he still had laughter left somewhere inside him. "Her name," he murmured, stroking the mother's muzzle, "is Valor." He turned to the pup, who tilted its head like a curious little soldier. "And you, tiny loudmouth, you're Echo." The clinic seemed to hold its breath for a moment. Then Valor, weak but steady, rested her head against Aiden's palm. Echo clambered awkwardly onto his knee and nipped at his sleeve, tail wagging wildly. Sarah covered her heart, eyes misted. "A family," she whispered. Aiden didn't reply. He didn't need to. Everything that mattered was pressed against his hand and his knee. The room held the kind of quiet that felt holy. But beneath it, faint like the heartbeat of something new, was laughter and breath and life finally unclenched. As Valor leaned into him and Echo licked his wrist with fierce pride, Aiden realized something quietly staggering. He had walked into the woods expecting loneliness. He had come out carrying a chance at belonging. And in the soft hum of machines and wagging tails, a soldier who once believed he was only built for battle found something worth living for again. The world outside kept snowing. But inside, spring had started. Winter stretched long and silver across Evergreen Ridge, the kind of cold that hummed through trees and carved its breath into window panes. But inside Aiden Michael's mountain cabin, a sturdy cedar-board home tucked beside a slope of whispering pines, warmth glowed from the windows like a promise. It had been weeks since that night in the storm, weeks since he carried a fading mother dog through darkness and prayed the world wouldn't take one more soul from him. And everything had changed. The quiet life he'd built, once a shell of a home, more silence than laughter, more shadows than light, now breathed like something alive. On the porch, wind chimes made from empty brass shell casings tinkled softly. Not a memento of war anymore, but a song greeting each morning. Valor sprawled beneath the wooden overhang, her coat thick and sleek again, a dignified queen surveying her snowy kingdom. Her eyes, amber and wise, touched with the softness only motherhood brings, followed every bird, every snowflake, every rustle in the woods. Beside her, Echo tumbled in clumsy chaos, chasing a twig one second and gnawing Aiden's bootlace the next. His ears still far too big for his head, paws oversized, a ball of boundless determination wrapped in fluff and mischief. Aiden sat on the steps in a dark wool sweater and worn jeans, elbows on his knees, breath fogging gently in the chill. He had always sat here alone before, coffee forgotten in hand, gaze drawn to the tree line like he was waiting for ghosts to return. But now, winter's silence no longer felt like a reminder. It felt like a pause between heartbeats, a gift. Valor rested her head on his boot, eyes half closed, a soft rumble of peace in her chest. Echo eventually gave up on attacking his shoelace and climbed into Aiden's lap, snuffling into his jacket with a sleepy huff as if declaring victory. This human was his now. Aiden brushed his knuckles over their fur, slow, tender, as though afraid they might vanish if he touched too hard. He'd been stronger than steel most of his life, strong enough to endure war, strong enough to watch friends fall. But this fragile happiness pressed against him, felt like the bravest thing he'd ever held. A trail of footprints approached through snow, crunching softly. Sarah Talbot appeared around the bend, bundled in a thick brown coat with a knitted pine-green scarf, curls peeking from under a wool cap. She carried a casserole dish covered in foil and marched with a no-nonsense pace only middle-aged women who have survived loss, small towns, and teenage sons can master. "You haven't been answering your phone," she called. "I assumed you were either dead or eating canned beans again." Aiden snorted. Both seemed likely. "Smart mouth," she muttered fondly, climbing the porch steps. She looked down at the sleeping pup and softened instantly. "Oh, Echo, sweetheart, still pretending you're fragile? We all know you're chaos, wrapped in fur." Echo's tiny tail thumped in agreement without waking. Valor lifted her head politely and Sarah scratched behind her ears. "And you, Lady Warrior, keeping the house in line?" Valor puffed her chest like royalty. Sarah handed Aiden the casserole. "Chicken, rice, vegetables. Eat it like a human, not a raccoon." "I don't eat like a—" "You absolutely do, and I refuse to let my town's most handsome, emotionally damaged hermit starve." Aiden blinked. "What?" "Hush, it's called community support." She headed down the steps, waving. "Enjoy, soldier." As she disappeared back down the snowy path, Aiden murmured, "Pretty sure she just called me a raccoon." Valor huffed like she agreed. Echo snored. Aiden chuckled under his breath. It came easier now. Later that afternoon, Deputy Cole Ramsey stopped by, crunching up the drive in his winter boots. Tall, lean, freckles dusting his face, always looking like someone who expected bad news but hoped for the opposite. He held a bag of dog treats. "Official community welcome gift," he said, "from my dog, who did not approve me getting another one, or two. Tell him ours are very polite. That one just tried to eat a glove," Cole deadpanned as Echo proudly shredded one behind him. Aiden shrugged. "Small tactical errors." Cole smirked and leaned against a railing, gaze distant. "You know, when I first moved here, I didn't think I'd belong anywhere. Foster care does that, makes everywhere temporary. But Evergreen Ridge, people stay, even when life gets cold." He nodded toward Valor and Echo. "Looks like they found their place, too." Aiden's voice grew soft. "And I found mine." Cole nodded once, serious as ever. "Good, we need you here." Then after a beat, "Even if you do dress like an undercover lumberjack." Aiden stared. "I own 2 flannels." "Exactly." Cole waved and headed out. "See you around, Captain Flannel." "I'm not—" "Too late, it's canon," Cole called over his shoulder. Aiden shook his head, smiling despite himself. Days bled into evenings, each one gentler than the last. Valor grew stronger, Echo grew bolder, and occasionally stole socks with military precision. Aiden rebuilt a cracked section of his fence, hand-sanded new porch railings, and stacked wood neatly beside the cabin. The motions grounded him. He'd spent years waiting for orders, for deployments, for the next mission. Now he fed a family breakfast, walked them at sunrise, sat in the snow and let them nap against him. Some nights he'd light a fire inside, warm glow filling the cabin, the smell of pine logs and smoke curling upward. Valor would lie at his feet. Echo sprawled across his chest like a tiny furry king. That's when memories would come. Not sharp and violent like before, but softened at the edges, like war was finally something that happened in the past instead of something waiting to happen. Again. He would whisper, not sure if he spoke to himself or ghosts or these 2 souls who healed him. "I'm here." And for the first time in years, there was no hollow echo. There was echo. There was valor. There was peace. One evening, snow drifted quietly and the world turned silver outside his porch. Aiden sat in his rocking chair, coat zipped up, Valor resting her chin on his thigh, Echo curled in a tight ball against his chest. He brushed a thumb over Valor's ear. "You didn't just survive," he murmured. "You taught me how." Echo gave a sleepy sigh against his heart. Aiden's voice cracked, but he smiled as he whispered, "You didn't just get rescued. You saved me, too." Snow fell slower, like time had agreed to linger. Somewhere far off, a dog barked, one long, proud note carried across the frozen valley. Valor raised her head and answered, strong and sure. Echo yipped, adding his tiny, defiant roar. Their voices melted into the mountain air like a promise. Family isn't blood. Family is who finds you when you are broken and stays until you stand again. Snowflakes danced in gentle spirals. Aiden leaned back, closed his eyes, and breathed. And for the first time since war carved scars into his soul, winter didn't feel cold. It felt like home. Sometimes God sends miracles in the smallest footsteps, not with thunder nor lightning, but with a trembling little puppy, a desperate bark in the snow, and the quiet courage to keep believing that love still finds us, even when we think we're lost. Maybe we don't always recognize his miracles at first. Sometimes they look like struggle. Sometimes they look like heartbreak. And sometimes they show up on four paws, reminding us that we are never truly alone. In our everyday lives, we rush, we worry, we carry invisible battles. But like Aiden, Valor, and Echo, we can rise again, one breath, one prayer, one step at a time. Hold on to hope, hold on to faith. The Lord sees you, He hears you, and when you are at your weakest, He sends help in ways you might never expect. If this story touched your heart, take a moment now. Share it with someone who needs encouragement today. Leave a comment about your own miracle or moment of grace, and remember to subscribe to our channel so more souls can find comfort, courage, and light. May God bless you, protect your home, and give you strength through every season. Until we meet again, stay faithful, stay kind, and never stop believing in quiet miracles.